I held the flowers too carefully for something that was supposed to be simple. They were white lilies in eucalyptus, arranged by someone who had never met me, never seen the reception desk where I usually sat, never watched me sort invoices and calendar updates into neat rows that no one noticed unless they went wrong. The card attached said welcome, no name, just a space left open in case someone important wanted to sign it later. I checked the time again as I waited outside the conference hall. The new CEO's arrival had been scheduled down to the minute. There were cameras today, an internal video team, a couple of press people, the sort of thing that made everyone stand a little straighter and speak in sentences that sounded like statements. I wasn't meant to be visible. I was meant to be correct. Inside, the room had already taken its shape. Senior staff at the front, a semicircle of assistants and department heads behind them, and a loose edge of people like me at the back support roles, operational staff. Those who made things move without being named in meetings. I slipped along the side wall, careful not to block anyone's view, and waited for the cue. The chairwoman entered first. She had the kind of presence that didn't require raising her voice. People oriented toward her automatically. She took her place at the front, accepted a microphone, and smiled the practiced smile of someone who had been recorded saying variations of the same welcome for years. There was a signal from one of the coordinators, a small hand motion meant for me. It was time. I stepped forward with the flowers, holding them out with both hands the way I had been told. It wasn't meant to be a personal gesture. It was just part of the ceremony, a way to mark a transition. The chairwoman turned slightly, saw me approaching, and for a second I thought she might just take them without looking closely at who I was. Instead, I extended my hand first. A small reflex of courtesy, something I'd learned to do even when I knew it wouldn't matter. Her eyes flicked to my badge, then back to my face. A pause. Not long, just long enough. "I don't shake hands with low-level employees," she said, not loudly, but clearly enough for the microphones to carry it. "You can leave the flowers." There was a ripple in the room. Not a roar of laughter, not open cruelty. Just that soft collective exhale people make when they're relieved something isn't directed at them, a few smiles, a few glances exchanged. The cameras stayed trained on the front. My hand was still extended. I lowered it slowly because anything faster would have looked like a reaction. For a moment I was aware of everything at once. The smell of the lilies, the hum of the overhead lights, the faint whir of the camera rigs adjusting focus. I felt the heat in my face, but it didn't spread into anything sharp. It settled into something quieter. There are moments when you can choose to disappear inside yourself. I had done that before. It's a useful skill in offices like ours. This time I didn't. I kept my voice even, not raised, not defensive, just clear enough to be heard by the people nearest the front, which, because of the microphones, meant everyone. "You just lost $2.1 billion. The number sounded strange in my own mouth. Too large to belong to someone like me, someone holding flowers in a room like this. For a second, nothing happened. The chairwoman's expression didn't change. If anything, it sharpened slightly, like she was deciding whether to ignore me or correct me. A few people near the front glanced over their shoulders, trying to place me, to decide if I was joking. I didn't move. I didn't repeat myself. I just stood there, holding the flowers, as if I had said something as ordinary as the time. The interruption came from a side door. It wasn't subtle. The head of corporate finance, who was never late to anything and never interrupted anyone in front of cameras, stepped in quickly, a tablet in his hand, his face already set in a kind of tight focus that meant something had gone wrong in a way that couldn't be deferred. He went straight to the chairwoman, leaned in and spoke low enough that the microphones didn't catch his words, but close enough that the cameras caught his urgency. I saw the exact moment the number reached her. It was small, just a fraction of a second, where her posture shifted, not collapsing, not panicking, just recalibrating. Her eyes moved to me again, this time not as a dismissal, but as a variable she hadn't accounted for. Around the room, the quiet changed. People who had been half smiling were now watching, the kind of attention that had weight to it. She straightened, adjusted the microphone slightly. "Excuse us for a moment," she said to the room, voice smooth, practiced. We have a minor internal matter to clarify. Minor. The head of finance didn't contradict her. He just waited. Her gaze came back to me more direct now. You, she said, not unkindly this time. What did you mean by that statement? I shifted the flowers in my hands, not to make a point, just because they were getting heavy. The infrastructure contract with Halcyon Logistics, I said. The compliance clause tied to oversight authorization. The authorization sits with my department's sign-off queue this quarter. It's tied to an internal conduct provision that's triggered by public incidents involving senior leadership and staff. I kept my tone flat, informational, the same way I would explain a delayed invoice or a missing signature. If that provision flags, I added, their board has the option to suspend execution. The contract value is $2.1 billion over 5 years. Silence again. Not empty this time. Full. The new CEO had arrived during the interruption. I hadn't even seen him come in. He stood just inside the doorway now, watching, not speaking, taking in the room with a kind of careful neutrality. The chairwoman held my gaze a moment longer. "And is it flagged?" she asked. "It will be by end of day," I said, "unless there's a corrective notation entered before the daily compliance sweep." The head of finance closed his eyes briefly, then opened them, not frustration at me, at the situation. "What kind of corrective notation?" he asked. "Documentation of remediation," I said. "Acknowledgement of conduct, commitment to policy adherence, that sort of thing." "It's standard." The chairwoman's hand rested lightly on the table in front of her. For the first time since I'd seen her, she didn't look entirely in control of the room. Not out of weakness, out of adjustment. "Very well," she said finally. "We will address that." Her eyes moved to the flowers. "You may place those on the table. Not give them to me, just place them." I stepped forward, set the arrangement down where she indicated, and stepped back again. No one laughed this time. No one spoke. The cameras kept rolling. The rest of the welcome proceeded, but it had a different shape now. Words were the same about vision, about leadership, about the future, but they landed in a room that had just watched the ground shift under a set of assumptions no one had thought to question. Afterward, when the cameras were off and the press people were ushered out, I was asked to come to a side office. It was just the chairwoman, the head of finance, and the new CEO. Up close, the chairwoman's expression was composed again, but not dismissive. "What happened out there," she said, "was not my intention." I believed her. Intent and effect rarely line up cleanly. "The policy language is clear," I said. "It doesn't require intent, just the incident and the record." She nodded once, accepting that. "And if we enter the corrective notation?" the CEO asked, speaking for the first time. His voice was calm, curious rather than confrontational. "The flag doesn't trigger," I said. "The contract proceeds." There was a pause, then the chairwoman inclined her head slightly. "Then we will do that," she said. "And we will review how we engage with all members of staff going forward." It wasn't an apology. Not in the way people expect. It was a statement of adjustment. In a place like ours, that was as close as it usually came. "I'll send the documentation to your office," I said. She nodded again. As I turned to leave, the CEO spoke. "Thank you," he said, not effusive, just direct. I went back to my desk after that. The lilies' scent lingered on my hands. In the days that followed, my inbox changed. Meeting invites I had never seen before appeared. My name was added to distribution lists that used to stop one layer above me. When people spoke to me, they paused a little longer, chose their words more carefully. It wasn't warmth. It was awareness. I did my work the same way I always had, carefully, correctly. The systems hadn't changed, just the way people saw who was inside them. A week later, I walked past the conference room again. It was empty. Chairs pushed in, table cleared, no cameras, no audience. Just a room. I stood there a moment, remembering the sound of that small, soft laughter, and the silence that had followed it. Nothing in the building had shifted physically. Something in me had settled into place. I went back to my desk, opened the next file, and kept going.